unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What's up, everyone? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing really good.
So another fantabulous week of college football. We are on to week 4. This is the preview show. Every Wednesday, we do the preview show, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to break into it. Let's start with the first game we've got. It is Syracuse versus Clemson. Syracuse got smoked by Tennessee in the first game of the year. And then they played UConn, and it was close against UConn. They had to force overtime late, and then they prevailed. Angeli, I think that's how you say his name, threw for 417 yards in that game. They only ran for 44, so it's not a good look. They were inefficient on the conversion downs, and UConn was able to run the ball pretty well. I don't really like Syracuse a ton, but in this game, Clemson doesn't look great either. They're quite wounded. They lost to LSU. They lost to Georgia Tech last week. They looked better in the Tech game than they did in the LSU game. They were able to get 6.2 yards per play in the Tech game, but they kept getting burnt by Haynes King on the ground, so that was not good. They were better on conversions. They only committed 2 turnovers, but Tech was just better. Tech was 50% on third downs and had no turnovers and held the ball for a long time. Ian, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so obviously Syracuse is coming in. Angeli's had a fantastic season so far. He's passed for already over 1,000 yards. He has almost 10 touchdowns already. But the offense is very one-dimensional. It's kind of make or break on him. They scored 66 on Colgate, but then they had to win in overtime against UConn, and then they got smoked against Tennessee. Clemson, the other thing to know, doing the homework on this, Syracuse has only won 1 game against Clemson when it was south of the Mason-Dixon, and that was in the Gator Bowl in 1996. They have never beaten Clemson in Clemson, and they've only beaten them once since they've joined the ACC, and that's when they upset them in 2016, I believe. I feel like, obviously, a lot of people are piling on Clemson, as they probably should. They are not having the best showing so far, but I feel like the way Syracuse wins this game is that if they make it a shootout, but I feel like Clemson's defense is going to do a good enough job to limit the, passing lanes for them. And, if it's up to, Syracuse having to win the game via the air, Clemson's going to be able to pick that up. And I think for Clemson's offense, it's about, making it simple, trying not to now have everything rely on Klubnik and more on the running game, make it more balanced, which they did in the second half against Tech and improved very big dividends. So I'm going to take Clemson in this one. Like I said, history, I usually side with it. Syracuse has never won in Clemson. I think that'll continue. I'm going to go Clemson winning. Let's do like a 30-20 victory for the Tigers.
Yeah, I just like Clemson too much in this game. I think Syracuse is a fine program right now, but just the way that they played against Tennessee and the fact that they struggled against UConn just lends itself to I believe Clemson should be the better team in this game. And it might be close. It might be like a 24-20 game, similar to the Georgia Tech game last week, which I think there is similarities there. But I think this time Clemson gets the better of the game, and they win this one, like I said, 24-20. Okay, moving on, SMU, TCU. TCU's only played 2 games, so we really haven't seen much out of them. They smoked UNC the first game of the year, had 542 yards of offense, close to evenly split, both rushing and passing. They only allowed UNC to convert 20% of the time. And conversely, they were able to convert 8 of 12. They forced 3 turnovers. The bad thing is, though, in their other game against Abilene Christian, they allowed 453 total yards, who converted 12 of 17. But it looked like most of that was when the backups were in. So I don't know how much credence you can give to that. On the other side, SMU, they lost to Baylor in overtime and then struggled against Missouri State. Jennings threw for nearly 300 yards and 3 TDs against Baylor. They gave up 440 yards to Sawyer Robertson, which is not good, and 161 rush yards, though. Allowed a lot of conversions, 11 of 18. They didn't turn the ball over very much, only once, but they had 2 turnovers against Missouri State. So I think with this one, I'm leaning more towards TCU because TCU seems pretty hot right now. They're on a roll, but SMU is definitely dangerous. Jennings is a very solid quarterback. I'm not completely sold on TCU's quarterback yet. UNC is kind of a bad team, so it's not much to really write home about. But this game is in Fort Worth, so I believe TCU is going to have an advantage there with the crowd because even if the game was at SMU doesn't have crowds, so there's no advantage there. I think TCU's got an advantage because they actually draw a crowd. I think the game will probably be a 35-25 game, and maybe TCU scores one late to put them over a 2-score advantage. What do you got in this game, Ian?
Yeah, this old school battle, it's weird because a lot of people think Southwest Conference, but I remember when these teams were in Conference USA. Battle of the Iron Sloat is what this one's called. Yeah. SMU TCU, I agree with all the points too. I feel like this one's going to be close. Usually these games with TCU and SMU usually get pretty tight. And I feel like it might be, one of those stereotypical Midwest shootouts. Hoover, I really like, though. He's very, the more accurate passer and rushing game for TCU than the offensive line. I like that more than SMU's defense right now. Obviously, they had that upset to Baylor, and I feel like TCU does have a more complete offense right now than Baylor did, and they weren't really able to run away against Missouri State. So I'm going to take TCU winning this one. I think it'll be a shootout, but I'll go Horned Frogs. Let's say 35. Let's say 35-28 for the Hypnotoads.
Okay, this is a big game that I don't think many people thought coming into the year would be a big game. But Texas Tech, Utah. Texas Tech had 599 yards of offense against Oregon State last week, with 464 coming from their quarterback, Behren Morton. They held Oregon State to 8 yards of rushing offense, which is abysmal for Oregon State. They had a ton of explosive plays, including 3 touchdown passes of 23 yards or more. One of them was for 61. Utah, on the other side, obliterated UCLA. The game was never close. They ran for 286 yards and kept UCLA to 220 total yards. They were 15 of 17 on conversions and kept the Bruins to 5 of 11. They only had 3 penalties and 0 turnovers, relatively clean game. Their other 2 games were against some tomato cans, so I don't really care. And Texas Tech, conversely, they had some tomato cans too. So really only those game each for them to really have a game opponent. But I like Texas Tech to be able to throw the ball a ton, and I don't think Utah is going to be able to stop that. I think Texas Tech is going to be able to throw the ball all over the field, and Utah is going to be kind of in a spin cycle trying to defend that. I think Texas Tech is going to get explosive play after explosive play. The other side of it, though, is Utah able to run the ball effectively? Because if they are, they can stay in this game. it looks like Texas Tech has a good enough defense to really shut that out, because I don't believe in Dampier as a thrower. I believe him. He's good as a runner. I know that. Like, he's effective and he runs that offense well because it's the same coordinator he had at New Mexico. But I just don't believe in him to put up a ton of yards through the air. With that being said, I think Texas Tech wins this. I'm going to say like they win like 35-20. What do you got?
Yeah, and both of these teams are going to present big challenges that they haven't faced this year. With Tech, obviously they're an air raid type team. The passing with Morton has been phenomenal. They have the number one offense in the Big 12, to no one's surprise, averaging over 600 yards a game. It's remarkable. But Utah is in the top 25 in passing defense. So this is going to be a real tough challenge for Tech, because there are going to be times I don't think there are going to be people open, but I feel like the rushing attack that Tech has, especially with Hill at running back, and Morton can run as well if he needs to on those QB draws. Dampier, go for him too, is because I feel like Tech's going to have to make him force him to throw the ball, and Tech has the number one rushing defense in the Big 12 right now. Now, credit, they haven't, a lot of layup games, but still, they have the number one rushing defense. So they're going to force Utah and Dampier to throw, try to make it, high percentage passes if you're Utah. But I feel like Texas Tech has that explosive ability. I'm going to take the Red Raiders winning this one. I'll go with let's do like a 34-27 win for Tech.
Okay, moving on to an interesting game, Arkansas against Memphis. Arkansas, with that very close loss to Ole Miss last week, if they don't turn that ball over on that fumble, they have a shot of winning that game. So, Arkansas with Taylon Green looked very good. I know those first couple of games I was kind of suspect because he was playing some tomato cans, but he looked great against Ole Miss. He had 305 yards of passing and 115 rushing. So, he looks really good. What is it? It also says, but they allowed Chambliss, a first-time starter, to get over 400 total yards on them. So that was not good. Conversely, on the defensive side, they were 9 of 12 on third downs, but again allowed Ole Miss to be 8 of 12 on third downs. They had 7 penalties in that one fumble, so not a clean game. That fumble was a turning point. Memphis on the other side, Memphis played 3 tomato cans, so we really don't know what to make of them. The only game that they played against a decent opponent per se is Troy, who played Clemson close. So that's the only one you can really look at. I looked at that. They had 430 yards of offense, evenly split for the most part. They held Troy to 112 yards of offense, which is good. They had 7 penalties and a fumble loss, but was decent on conversions. They were 7 of 15. Ran the ball pretty well among several ball carriers, so they have that going for them. I like Taylon Green to have a good game here. I think he's just getting started. He's proving to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC already. I think Memphis is not as talented as Arkansas, even though Arkansas does not have a ton of talent. Probably one of the lower talent identities of any of the teams in the SEC, but they're obviously a step up above a group of 5 team like Memphis, even though Memphis is one of the better group of 5 teams. It's a real test. It's in Memphis. It's in Tennessee. It plays an advantage for Memphis there, but Arkansas has played bigger crowds. I think they've got one year. I think they're going to be able to move the ball pretty well. Like I said, Taylon Green can move the ball either through the air or the ground. Arkansas defensively struggled last week, but I think they can probably hold their own enough that Taylon Green will make the difference here. Maybe it's a closer game. I'm going to say like a 28-24 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and the other thing to note, too, is Arkansas right now has the second best offense in the SEC, while Memphis has the second best defense in the American. And I think this is going to be one of those examples where we see conference disparity. disparity. Arkansas, I feel like, especially with Green, they did a really good job exploiting the secondary and linebackers of Ole Miss, and I think they can do that again. Memphis, the goal for them is, ground and pound, maybe play keep away, but I don't think they have the talent, like you said, to keep up with Arkansas. So I think Arkansas will run away with it. I'll go Razorbacks winning. Let's go 35-17.
Okay, let's move on to Oregon State. Oregon State's had a really rough go of it right now. They really can't run the ball. Malik Murphy is about the only thing they got going. He can throw it, but that's all their offense really is. They can't seem to stop anyone as well. They were efficient on conversions in the Texas Tech game, but got smoked regardless of that, so it doesn't really tell you much. Oregon, in their game against Oklahoma State, they were advantaged in the yardage total 631 to 211, which is such a huge advantage of that. I mean, that's 3 times as much. They only punted the ball twice in that game. The Northwestern game, Northwestern was better of an opponent, but a lot of their stats came largely later in the game when the backups were in. Dante Moore did have an interception thrown, so that was kind of not good in that game, but they were able to force Stone to 2 interceptions. They had 0 penalties in that game, which is pretty dang good, and they were efficient on third down. So I like Oregon in this game. I like Oregon pretty big. Oregon State is just not very good this year. The Pac-12 or whatever it is called, Oregon in what Pac-2. Oregon State just a terrible team. Oregon, on the other hand, is just a top-tier team right now. It's definitely not only one of the better teams in the Big Ten, but more than likely one of the better teams in the country. So I like Dante Moore a lot. I liked him at UCLA. And you're seeing his skills being suited to, so he's making the most of it. Oregon's defense is very stout. They've done quite well in these games. I expect that to continue here. And I know it's a rivalry game. It's in Eugene. I like Oregon big. I like Oregon 42 to 17. What do you got?
Yeah, in Oregon State right now, they are in the 100 range of total defense. I think they were in the 110th ranked total defense right now. They're 0-3. It's a rough start. It looks like it's going to be a long year for Oregon State. That's why I said when we did the last show, I was like, pray for Oregon State because now they got to play Oregon. And they have not won in Eugene since 2007 when chaos reigned. So I'm going to take the Ducks winning this one. I agree with you. I think they'll win big. I just don't see Oregon State keeping up. Even though it's a really good rivalry, I think Ducks will take the Civil War here.
Okay, let's move on to we missed one. Sorry, the USF game. You know what it is? In my notes, I have such a small note about the game. That's why I missed it. Because it's a tomato can. This is one of those games where USF should easily win this game. They should win by at least 40 points. The offense should be able to score a ton. It's more looking at how they react after being beat by Miami last week pretty badly. In that game, though, they were able to move the ball. Chaz Nimrod had a really good game. They just couldn't capitalize on good field position and couldn't really punch it in. They had a bunch of field goals. I expect USF to do well here, but again, it's one of those things. They have this game. They have next week off. It's just essentially a practice, and so just hope that no one gets hurt, get through, so then you have the rest of the season the next 2 weeks to prepare for the conference play. What are your thoughts on this one, Ian?
Yeah, I agree. And especially with South Carolina State, they played South Carolina in kind of similar vein. They had Sellers and Brown is kind of, very similar in that both are really good rushers and they're down the, run down the field type guys, and they can still throw the ball very well. So South Carolina State had a tough time covering that. I don't see USF having trouble. They shouldn't have any trouble. Like you said, hopefully everybody stays healthy.
Yeah.
Be up by like 5 touchdowns, have a running clock, and get your backups in the third quarter. I'll take USF winning big. I'll go with like a 45-10 win.
Yeah, I'm thinking something like that too. Maybe even like a 52-10 or something. I am just more curious. Hopefully the defense plays well. That's what I'm really hoping for. Okay, next one we've got is Purdue, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is looking for their first victory 4 weeks into the season. That's remarkable. I don't think I know they've had some bad years the last 30 years, but like, to see that is pretty telling. But again, they played two of the better teams in the country in Texas A&M and Miami. So, they barely lost to both. I think it was a total of like 4 points between the two losses. So it's not really, what it is. It is what it is. But their schedule gets much easier after those two games. So this week against Purdue, and then like outside of USC, there's really not much left. Their schedule is pretty easy. They do have Boise State, which, may be a tough game, but I don't know. Boise State didn't look very good against USF, so we'll see. But as far as Purdue, they were unable to get a ground game going against USC last week, only 52 yards. They were able to throw the ball a good amount, 305 yards, but they had 3 picks. One of them was that thick six versus the D line of USC. They weren't able to get the defense off the field, allowed 8 of 13 conversions. Conversely, they were 8 of 14 themselves, which is a plus. So they're able to get conversions. USC ran the ball quite well, and Maeva had nearly 300 yards. So overall, not a good show defensively, including their tight end had a really good game too. On the other side, Notre Dame, Carr had 2 pretty good games considering he's a freshman. He threw for, I don't have the total for the Miami game. It was like 220 something, but he had 293 against Texas A&M. Love and Price, the running backs, both looked pretty good had over 150 yards on the ground, 3 TDs. But Texas A&M was pretty weak against the run. They struggled against UTSA the first week and a little bit the next week as well. So it's a little misleading. They gave up, though, Notre Dame, 488 yards, which is not good, mainly through the air for Marcel Reed. The defense made stops, and they were efficient. 9 of 15. I guess I'm making that wrong. Sorry. But they had a missed extra point that doomed them. But there was pretty much a difference in the game because then Texas A&M goes down and scores, hits their extra point, and then wins it. Pretty even game against Miami outside of those 2 turnovers. So, I don't know what to make of this Notre Dame team as far as like being a top tier team, but I don't think it takes a top tier team to beat Purdue. Purdue will probably be able to move the ball through the air a little bit, not a ton. I'm saying like maybe like 250 yards passing, but I think Notre Dame is good enough offensively. They're balanced enough with Carr and with the running backs to be able to move the ball and score. I'm going to say they win like 28-17. What do you got?
Yeah, and Purdue's offense hasn't been overly impressive. It's been better than last year, but I feel like Notre Dame's defense, it depends on which one we're getting. Are we getting the defense that got skewered against Texas A&M, or are we getting the one that was locked down against Miami but was unable to fix the wrinkles they had in the secondary? I'm going to take Notre Dame in this one. I feel like, with the way Purdue is, I think they are better. They have gotten to be a good team, but I don't think enough to where there'll be too much of a problem for Notre Dame. I'm going to take Irish winning. Let's go with like let's go like 30-17.
Nice. Okay. This next one, I'm gonna let you do your analysis first, and then I'll give my thoughts on this game.
Yeah, and this game is really kind of a crossroads, shall we say, for both teams. Auburn off to a really good start, obviously. they're 3-0, and then Oklahoma, they got that big win against Michigan in week 2, and then obviously went on the road to Temple and won out there. And it's kind of been different philosophies. Now, Jackson Arnold, he, the former Sooner, so this is going to be his homecoming. I'm sure that's going to go over well in Norman. So now, once an ally, now an enemy, and it's really tough place to win out. We know that for sure. And Mantier has just been lining up scoreboards left and right, both with the running and the passing. I mentioned too, Mantier is giving me serious Baker Mayfield vibes, which is like his downhill running when he has to scramble out of the pocket and his ingenuity. With Auburn, the key to them is how well they do against the run of Oklahoma's defense. Now, Oklahoma's defense, when in the first couple of games, they've been pretty good. I think Oklahoma is in the top 10 in the nation in overall defense, actually, and obviously in the top 5 in the SEC. So this is going to be the biggest test for Auburn's offense with Arnold and the rushing attack. So I feel like it's in Norman. It's one of the afternoon games, and yeah, I feel like Auburn's got Cobb at running back. He's been very good, but I feel like Oklahoma will force Auburn to throw the ball, which is what they want. And I feel like there just isn't enough stuff Auburn can throw at Oklahoma that would get them unbalanced, especially on offense. So I'm going to take Oklahoma winning. I think it'll be close. The goal for Auburn is to make this a low-scoring, mud fight.
Yeah.
But that's going to be easier said than done. I think the Sooners pull away. I think it'll get close, maybe some feeling each other out in the first 2 quarters. But I'll take Sooners winning. I'll go with let's do like 28-17.
I mean, I just feel like with this game, it feels like Auburn's a little bit of like fool's gold, because in that Baylor game, they still allowed a ton of yards by Baylor. And they somehow won that game. They ran the ball extremely well, but Arnold only had 108 yards passing. So like you said, if Oklahoma can force them to pass more and to shut down the running game, which they did against Michigan for the most part, they held Underwood to -1 yards rushing, and he's shown last week, Underwood, that he can run the ball. So I don't know. I have faith in the Oklahoma defense to be able to really stymie Auburn here. And then I also have faith in Mateer. Mateer, like, he's clearly the Heisman frontrunner. Already had a great game against Michigan and now looked amazing against Temple. And he probably will have a good game here. Like, I know Auburn's defense is good or okay, but I'm not expecting them to be like lights out against Oklahoma. Mateer is clearly one of the best QBs in the country, and he'll be able to move the ball quite well. He does both run the ball and throw the ball quite well, like you said, Baker Mayfield-esque. And I feel like he's going to put up at least 300 yards of total offense. And if that's the case, they should win by at least 10 points. So I'm going to say they win like 30-20. Let's move on to Tulane, Ole Miss. Ole Miss just chugging along here. Get the win against Arkansas. Tulane undefeated. Both of these teams undefeated. This is a tough game because Retzlaff is a really good quarterback. Tulane has done well enough on defense to set themselves up. Ole Miss, with 2 QBs that came in, and you had Simmons the first couple of weeks and then Chambliss, and they both put up huge numbers. So obviously the system is there for QBs to go off. I don't know on this one. This is going to be tough, but the thing that leads me to believe that Tulane can move the ball is that Arkansas had 526 total yards against Ole Miss. And so, like, Tulane's going to be able to move the ball as well. I think at least, like, 350 to 400 yards of offense. So if that's the case, then, I'm sorry. I just feel like Tulane's probably going to win this game. It's going to be an upset, It's just that's what I feel like. I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the numbers. I don't feel like Ole Miss's defense is strong enough. I didn't think that going into it, but now I feel like it. So I'm going to say I'm calling Tulane in a close one, maybe even similar. What was that like 5 years ago where it was like right when Lane Kiffin took over and there was
it was like in 2021. I remember, well, Ole Miss blew them out once in the fourth quarter, and it was like 60-20. And then it was like the last time they played, it was in Tulane. And that one was like way closer than it needed to be. I mean, Ole Miss still won by double digits, but Tulane was fighting. And we've seen Tulane pull this stunt before. They never go down easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tulane pulls it here. I think because they have the quarterback. Last year, Mensa was good too. But I think Retzlaff is probably even better because Retzlaff was at BYU and played really big games last year. I think he's got enough to win this one. I think they're going to win it, like I said, 27-24. What do you got?
Yeah, and with Tulane, like I said, they have a history now the last couple of years. They almost beat K-State last year, and they played Ole Miss, and these upper teams tough. They beat Duke. So the best thing Tulane can have happen to them is have Ole Miss get in their own way. If the quarterback situation is still not figured out, if the defense is still in shambles, that is prime upset opportunity for Tulane to do it. My only thing is that it's in Oxford and not an easy place to win, obviously, but Tulane has a lot of talent. Like I said, them and USF have kind of been the two picks for the group of five, and Tulane, I feel, is a very complete team. They've always been probably the most complete team of the group of five. I don't know. I feel like, though, whoever they do figure out at quarterback for Ole Miss, I don't think is going to matter as much because I did mention, like, the rushing attack has been so effective, especially with Kawan Lacey, and they still have guys like, like Logan Diggs and those guys at Ole Miss. So even if, it's Simmons or, Chambliss throwing, they can lean on the run game to bail them out. So I'm going to take the Rebels winning this one. I don't think Tulane's going to go down easy. They never do. So I'll go with let's do a 28-20 win for the Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I expect it to be close. I really do. With both teams, I think they're like, probably Tulane's like a little lower level than Ole Miss, but like I don't feel like Ole Miss is like a top tier team like they think they probably are. I think they're like just outside of the top tier of the SEC.
This game would be a much bigger deal if Tulane was still in the SEC.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I wish that would have happened and get rid of Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt seems to be holding their weight. So
yeah.
But okay, let's move on to speaking of Vanderbilt. Well, no, actually, sorry, this one. Michigan, Nebraska. So Underwood looked better against an inferior opponent, whatever. Take that with what you want. He was stymied against OU, so didn't look great there. This will be a nice test to see where they stand because, are they going to be a contender in the Big Ten? They don't have a Big Ten loss yet, so this is their first conference game. Nebraska, on the other hand, they had the game against Cincinnati. They were efficient in that game, 11 of 18. They forced 2 turnovers. They only allowed 69 passing yards, so maybe their defense can keep Underwood in check. But they did allow 202 on the ground. Raiola was able to put up 243 and 2 TDs with their running back, Emmett Johnson, putting up 108 on the ground. In this one, I feel like Nebraska is the better team right now. The game is in Lincoln, so I feel like that gives an advantage to Nebraska. Michigan struggled at Oklahoma really to do anything. And that might be the case here. I don't think Nebraska's defense is as good as Oklahoma's. It might be like a tier below that. So I still feel like they can make enough stops. Maybe Underwood is be able to run the ball very well against them. And then I guess Nebraska in a close one, I'm going to say Nebraska wins like 27-20. What do you got?
Yeah, and for me, this was my upset pick because Michigan is ranked, but I feel Nebraska in this one because I think what it's going to come down to, if Michigan's smart, the rushing defense for Nebraska has been very, very bad, but the passing defense has been fantastic. They've done a really good job shutting down the passing lanes. Meanwhile, Michigan, passing-wise, Mateer kind of carved them up, and not saying Raiola is like at that level, but especially with Raiola, he can move around in the pocket and get the first down that way, and he's thrown already 8 touchdowns, very high percentage, pass routes is what they're, working with, and it's effective. It's working for Nebraska. I feel like they're going to have to rely on Underwood a lot, and that's what Nebraska is going to want to do. They have a top 5 defense in the Big Ten, and I feel like if Michigan struggled against Oklahoma, Nebraska, and this could just be me remembering Nebraska in the Big 12, I always thought Nebraska and Oklahoma were at like equal levels, so I was like, Nebraska will be like what Oklahoma was to them. So I feel like Nebraska gets it done. They frustrate Underwood, force him into some bad plays, and they get it done in a close one. I'll go Cornhuskers winning with a 27-23 win.
Nice. Okay, moving on to South Carolina, Missouri. I just saw today that ESPN's Pete Thamel is reporting Sellers returned to practice, and which is Wednesday today when we're filming this, and it's live on our stream. And he's likely available against Missouri. So more than likely you'll see Sellers this weekend. Because what happened last week against Vandy, Doty came in and he's not very athletic. It limits their offense, and they didn't score while he was in at quarterback. So if he's in there, they don't really have a chance to win. They had 4 turnovers last week, and Vandy was able to run the ball well enough to keep moving the chains. Missouri, conversely, they had a real good game against Kansas. A couple other tomato cans they played as well, but Perbula had a big game, 334 yards, passing, over 75% completion percentage. 2 of their running backs had over 100 yards on the ground. They had a total of 595 yards of offense, 14 of 19 conversions, but they did have 7 penalties, and their time of possession was a 2-1 advantage against KU. So they looked quite well against Kansas. Kansas had some different things happen in that game where they took advantage of it to put them up, even though they weren't doing well on offense. The score was like 21-6 at one point, and then Missouri really put it on them and won by I think it was like 10 or 14. So Missouri, I mean, I like Missouri in this game, but it just also depends on Sellers. Like if Sellers can play 100%, I feel like South Carolina's in this game. But if he's not at 100%, he comes out or whatever, if the concussion is too big of a deal, then it really kind of stymies South Carolina. I'm going to go with Missouri just because I feel like it's a known commodity. They have a lot of depth there. They should be able to put up numbers. I don't like South Carolina's defense as well. I'm going to say Missouri wins 30-20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and Sellers being out still doesn't excuse giving up 31 to Vandy. And the offensive attack that Missouri has is very similar to Missouri's. It's very balanced, but they still focus on the run. And a guy like Perbula has a lot of similarities there to Vanderbilt's. So I'm going to go Missouri. I don't see the thing is with South Carolina's defense after that showing keeping up with Missouri, because Missouri has the #1 offense in the SEC right now. So if they couldn't do that well against Vanderbilt, I'm not feeling as comfortable against Missouri. So I'm going to take Tigers winning. I think they run away with it in the end. I'm going to go with let's go 34-24 win. Nice.
Okay. I'm going to let you start with this one.
Okay. Sure. So, oh God. Okay. History lesson. Florida has had struggles against Miami just throughout their history, ever since Miami became the juggernaut they were in the 80s. And for whatever reason, there is some hex after the Gator flop in Miami. They sold their soul there because they have not won in Miami since 1985. For reference, Wayne Gretzky won his first Stanley Cup that year. It's been that long. So, and it's mind-boggling thinking about that because Miami's just had Florida's number through so many of these meetings. And the annoying thing is, too, is that they don't play each other as much as they have been, and they should. That's one thing I've always said is I would love to play Miami every year, even if they do have a better record for us. Keep rivalries as much as you can. But I don't know. I mean, even in the years where they were favored, for example, like 2003 and 2013, going into Miami Gardens, they still found a way to lose. Some crap would happen where they get in their own way. And that's been the problem with Florida now this year is that they got in their own way. Now you've got to play a really, really tough Miami team with a really solid defense, an offense that is humming right now and has been able to exploit secondaries and especially the linebacking core, giving Beck very good looks. And, I mean, Beck already has history against Florida, so he knows what is coming against him. I don't really see, especially with the performances the last 2 weeks, that Florida can just keep up with how good Miami's defense has looked. And I just don't see them putting up enough points. I think the defense will come out to play and, give Miami some trouble, but it's not going to matter in the end. I'm going to go with Hurricanes winning. I'll be generous. I'll go like a 28-17 win for the Canes.
I mean, if you look at the game last week against LSU, Florida had, a terrible game by DJ Lagway, and he had 5 interceptions. He caused 2 direct of those turnovers, 2 of those interceptions resulted in field position for a field goal for LSU where they didn't gain much yardage, and they resulted in a field goal and then a pick 6. So clearly he was at fault for 10 points of LSU's points, the difference in the game. And then plus, if he doesn't throw the other ones, there's a chance that maybe they're able to move the ball and score as well. So Florida, and credit to LSU as well, because they were able to force those interceptions. But I really feel like DJ Lagway struggled immensely to be able to throw the ball away, which, that's what he needs to do. Like, if it's not there, do not force it into triple coverage like the one against Trey or, the one where he threw fading to the left and he threw it back to the right. And it was a hope and a prayer. You can't do that stuff. I know that was later in the game, both of those, but it's like you cannot be forcing these into tight windows like that. Unless you're 100% certain you're going to get there. I mean, it's very Brett Favre-esque kind of game where Brett Favre just would, keep throwing interceptions and, whatever. I feel like Florida's defense played extremely well. Like I said, they basically held LSU to 10 points, and it was really only in 2 scoring drives. LSU had to punt the ball a ton in that game. Florida, I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating to watch this team because there is a ton of talent there, and they seemingly are capable. The coaching seems to be lacking here. I think we've all talked about that. We know that Billy Napier just does not seem to be the guy. But I feel like Florida's going to have a chance in this game because the defense is going to be able to do things. I feel like Carson Beck had 3 picks last year against Florida and had 2 last week against USF. I feel he's destined to throw at least 2 picks in this game, which could be problematic for Miami. I feel like Florida's secondary matches up pretty well here in this game, and I think they're going to be able to make plays, get some pass breakups, force them to get off the field on 3rd down and 4th down. I feel like Miami's defense gave up some yardage to USF. Chaz Nimrod got open quite a bit. Maybe that's something that Florida can take advantage of, getting VB3 and J. Michael Sturdivant open. We'll see there. USF wasn't able to run the ball at all against Miami, so maybe it'll be a struggle there. But I feel like Baugh is a better running back than anything that USF has. So obviously, but like Baugh should be able to put up decent numbers. They kind of went away from him. He had like a 4 point something average per carry last week. They didn't really use him a ton. They need to really kind of focus on the run game with him. I like Jackson, but Jackson struggled against LSU. I think Jaden Baugh is the one you're going to have to go with here. Really ride him to get a bunch of rush yards. And, I still think Miami's going to win the game, though. I think Miami's going to win like a 31-17 game, and maybe they score one late. Like it's like a 24-17 going late in the fourth quarter, and they score one late. But, Florida really got to get their heads out of their butt and really start performing here, because it doesn't get easier from here on out. They got Texas, they got Texas A&M, they got Georgia, they got Tennessee, they got Ole Miss, they got, luckily they have Kentucky and Mississippi State, but outside of those, the games are tough. So they're going to have a really tough go here the next several 10 games or 9 games. So, all right, moving on. We've got Illinois, Indiana. I want to hear your thoughts on this one before I give my analysis.
Yeah, this game I feel like is going to be a Big 12 shootout in Bloomington. Both teams have had very impressive offenses so far in the year, and obviously we were expecting that with a team like Indiana. They were just putting up points left and right. But I feel like the deciding factor in this one is that I trust Illinois' defense more to get stops, where I don't as much with Indiana. Now they're both like 3 and 4 in the Big Ten ranking on overall defense, but I feel like Illinois is more prepared to face an attack like this with the passing game that Indiana will have, especially after their blowout win against Duke. I'm not saying Indiana's clearly better than Duke, but that was kind of a good tune-up game for this. So I trust Illinois getting enough stops and jumping ahead here. Bloomington's become a much tougher place to win at last couple of years, but I feel like the Illini get it done. I'm going to go Illinois winning I think it's going to be like a shootout. I'll go with like a 41-35 win for Illinois.
There's not much you can really gather from Indiana's first 3 games because they played again tomato cans. I love using that phrase, but it is what it is. So Indiana, we don't know what they're going to look like coming into this game. Illinois did play someone, of a power forward variety in Duke. They beat them pretty convincingly. Duke did get a ton of yards in that game. But Altmaier looked really good. Had 296 yards, 3 TDs. They were able to get over 50% on conversions. But Mensah had a good game. He had 334 yards. So I don't know. Mendoza has 9 TDs already in just 2 games. So that is a huge number already. Again, those are bad teams. So that kind of is skewed a little bit. I feel like if this is the game that Indiana is going to really put forth that they're worthwhile this year, this is going to be the game. This is their statement game. And I think because it is in Bloomington, it is an advantage. They're getting a crowd now. They're getting that home field advantage that they never had before. People are excited about this program. I like Cignetti a ton. I think Mendoza is talented. I think they win like a 34-24 game. And maybe they're up big most of the game, and then Illinois scores one late to make it look closer than it actually was. Okay, last one, Michigan State, USC. Michigan State was in a battle against BC, Boston College. They allowed BC to put up 390 yards of passing yards, barely escaped in overtime. They're balanced on offense in that game, 6 of 12 on their conversions. They stymied BC's run game. Conversely, USC should be able to throw the ball pretty well here. with both Lane and Lemon having good games. McCree, the tight end, has been showing up. I think the run game has a good game as well. I think that the defense is like a bend don't break right now, but I'm not really impressed with Michigan State's offense. So I feel like they'll perform better than they did against Michigan State. They also forced turnovers, which I think they probably get a couple here in this game. So I'm going to say USC wins like 38 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, and if this was in East Lansing, I'd be a little more worried because USC has just had trouble on the road against these Big Ten teams up north. But I feel like it's in LA in the Coliseum. And yeah, Mensa, I think it's just going to be too good. They struggled against BC, Michigan State did. And I think with the offense they have and how well the defense is looking now for USC, they'll be able to run over Michigan State. I'll go with the Trojans over the Spartans. I'll go with let's do like a 35-19. Maybe score like that.
Nice. Okay. That is the show, y'all. Catch us Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on all the social media formats. Type in Hater Radio to find us on all the social media formats. Haterradio.com for all of our articles. I might have something coming up. I haven't done one in a little bit, so we'll have something there. Ian, what's your social again?
Yeah, at G5 Gibson on Twitter and at G_Gator_G on Instagram and YouTube.
Nice. So catch us there. Enjoy these games, and we'll talk to you guys on Sunday. All right, take care.